Let's call this meeting to order. It's about 11:43, and we'll do introductions. I'm the chair, Pete Peterson.
Forrest Dunbar. Steve Training.
Eric Croft.
Amanda was our clerk's office.
Fantastic. Well, we've got a letter from
An attorney.
Jana that wanted to have us talk about Mr. Flynn being recused from marijuana licensing discussions and voting. And so that is the item on the agenda that we are talking about here today. And so, Mr. Dunbar.
So thank you guys. So in our last meeting, we discussed this and decided not to take action because we wanted to have you here and because we hadn't sort of resolved our issues. I had
Can I
proposed.
just have us pause really quick? I'm sorry, Jana wanted to call in and we haven't gotten the line set up, so I'm just gonna go.
All right.
All right, so should we
We'll delay for just a minute.
talk about something else for a second? We're still on the record though, so Dick,
What
you
you
can't
say
tell
can be
your
used against you.
don't tell your profane jokes anymore.
Okay, well, I'll try not to pull Milby, okay?
Eric, have you had a chance to read this before?
Yeah, when I was rereading.
So actually, something we could talk about without her is, so we had Pat, he called in to the last meeting, and I asked him some question about the nature of his business. And he told us that he does own a small percentage stake in a cultivation facility. But he doesn't have, at this point, any stake in any of the other kinds of facilities, manufacturing, testing, or retail. There had been some talk about maybe sometime in the future he would explore retail, but at this point, they don't have a business plan. They're not, it's very speculative.
But this cultivator, wouldn't he be supplying the product to retailers?
Well, yeah, that's the only reason you'd be growing would be to supply someone for retail, or you could supply for manufacturing.
You could sell it to a manufacturer, sure.
How much of
And
it?
he is listed on the corporate papers as the treasurer. He told me that.
So, we're still waiting for Jana?
I'm seeing issues in that.
5%, 1%, 10%?
5.7% he owns.
So, yeah, I wanna. Have you heard?
Now, was Jana an attorney? I saw she had Esquire attorney. And she-
Yeah.
Yeah, she's an attorney. She runs her own law firm. She's actually the daughter of, what's his name, Weltseen Fairbanks.
She's originally from Fairbanks.
Yeah.
She lives in downtown?
She has an office in Minnesota Drive.
She has an office next to the new former Wells Fargo, soon to be LIO.
That's correct.
Yeah. I was talking to them. Last night I was talking to the district manager for Wells Fargo, and he talked about selling them. He's like, "Well, we're out of there. We're just happy to be out of that building." Okay, good.
Okay, so in the interest of due diligence, I texted her and let her know that the meeting started. Call in.
Okay.
And I think we can.
So last meeting I proposed a compromise, and I'd like to propose it again today. And that's, I think, so I was persuaded to vote to prevent Pat from participating by, I think it was your argument, Eric, that he had sort of, if he could, because it's such a new industry, it's not analogous to liquor, and he has sort of a first mover advantage. And again, I'm positive it wasn't for some reason I remember you being
I think it
yours.
was.
And so, being one of the people in on the ground floor and then potentially being able to prevent other people from getting in gives him a pretty significant advantage in cultivation. And he has a direct business interest in cultivation. However, I would like for him, I am persuaded by what she says in this letter about the fact that he's the only representative of downtown. And the nature of the single member district means that we have potentially disenfranchised a larger chunk of people. I also think that he has some knowledge and competence on these issues. And so I would like to see him participate when we talk about the licenses for manufacture, testing, and retail, because he doesn't have a direct interest in those yet. And I think we could, and that would be my recommendation. We bar him from talking about cultivation facilities where he has a direct competitive, relationship, and we allow him to participate in the other three. That was my proposal last week, or last week. or before.
Yeah, we could go today.
Yeah.
What's the status on Jana if she asked? You texted her and she
I-
hasn't responded?
Texted her and I emailed her, and I have heard back on neither.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure we were doing that in good faith. The two arguments, kind of mixed 2.5 arguments.
In the letter.
Yeah. That we somehow found that he wouldn't, that he would use this to his benefit rather than doing it in the public interest. I think everybody who spoke said,
Right.
we think he'll do it honorably and well. That's not the standard in conflict of interest.
Right.
That's not the point. It's not telling somebody whether they're a good person or a bad person.
Right.
We've served with good people and bad people and the mix of all, and you apply the same standard to everybody. And so that point, I think, is just irrelevant. All of us, I'll speak for myself. I believe he would do that honorably. He wouldn't use his position to advantage his business. But the fact is, when you put somebody in that situation, it undermines the public just by the very nature of them.
Public trust.
Yeah, and so we want to avoid those situations. So that I don't think was an argument. I'm used to single member districts. The double member districts are more unusual in our system up and down.
Yeah, but
And-
you're also used to having no conflict rules at the state legislature.
well, they don't do them very well. That's true. So but that's the trade-off that usually happens. This fact that we have cover if one of us is conflicted, the other can still be there
No.
is almost unusual.
Hold on, Eric, though. I have to push back on that a little bit because you have a state senator, right?
Right.
So you have at least one other layer of a person you can go to. Mountain View only has Pat, and downtown only has Pat, and I guess ostensibly the mayor.
The half argument, he's very experienced in this. That comes with the conflict. I mean, that'll come all the time, right? When you say, I have a bar and I want to vote on bars and I know a lot about bars, knowledge is going to be a part of conflict
Yeah.
by its very nature. So I didn't think any of the arguments from the letter made much sense to me. But your point is an interesting one. Whether the real conflict is on cultivation. We say, look, on a ground floor business,
Yeah.
would we? So, Nick, have there been bar owners on the assembly that voted on bar matters?
Sullivan.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
He can't vote on his own.
Patrick is a part owner in several restaurants that also have liquor
Bars
licenses.
downtown.
And he's been voting on liquor licenses for 8 years, only recuses himself on when
Those.
businesses for his licenses come up for reconsideration.
Did Dan Coffey own a liquor licenses too? or he just-
Dan Coffey was the expert on liquor license. We trusted his opinion more than we did the city attorney.
But he had to
I'm sorry.
recuse himself because he
did.
represented a lot
Yeah,
of
that's true.
the members.
Yeah, I don't think he owned. He was their attorney, and then he would say, but he'd vote on general liquor issues, but not on his clients.
Correct.
But we could trust his opinion because he knew more about liquor than any city attorney ever had.
Sure.
So I worked with him before too.
But I think what you're getting at here is a good point, that we are, right now, we are talking about, so another example is Bill Starr, who is a developer and votes on development issues. But I think he would recuse himself from direct
Right.
issues that he is working on.
Bill Starr recused himself on 42nd Street development because he had interest in it.
Right, but he didn't recuse himself from however many, or like general rules on Title 21, for
He
example.
also recused himself for a project out at Merrill Field as well.
Right, and we assume that if Pat's actual project came to us, he would recuse himself.
Right.
Dick?
But keep in mind, Patrick did not recuse himself on this issue. We decided he had a conflict.
But he
There's a
did
big
tell us he
difference
had a
between
conflict, though.
Recusing yourself and the body deciding. In Juneau, they said, I've got a conflict, and they vote anyway.
They're always allowed to vote. I've seen
Someone-
one instance where they were actually.
Somebody hollers object and then
But
you're
from the
required to vote.
From the public's perspective, we have to make sure
Yep.
the public doesn't think we're playing games.
Right.
Because we're giving an advantage to somebody on the body.
Well, and I think that the public trust is the most important point here, and that's why I voted letter E or whatever is on the, in that sheet that Amy always reads off of, and that's the reason I voted to bar him. But it was a close vote for me, and there are countervailing issues, and I
Right.
think if we were to come up with here in this committee what I think is a reasonable compromise. So, you know, the ADN comment section is not a great place to poll the public, but if you read through the comments, there were some that were saying, you know, he's going to give himself an advantage, and there are other people saying, making the exact points that we've just been making about liquor licenses, about development, about the fact that this is a legitimate industry, and we seem to be going harder on it than we do on other industries.
But this is a new industry, just starting off. We're not going harder. We're trying to create a new industry.
Right.
And we've seen problems with alcohol over the years we couldn't adjust.
Sure.
With this one, we can deal with it.
Sure.
From my perspective, I see Patrick as an honorable person, but if I was a retailer, you know who I'm gonna buy my product from? Pat Flynn, because I'm gonna figure he's gonna vote for me if I decide to bring a retail license in. I will take all of my business to him.
But that's, I mean,
That makes sense.
yeah, but I
That's
mean,
the argument I hear from the public.
well, I don't know, but so there's going to be a number of cultivation facilities and a number of retail facilities.
There aren't now.
And he has, well, there's going to be 4 already, right? And his isn't even to the point where we're proposing it yet. And my point is his market share will be relatively small, and his personal share in that business will be relatively small. And as I made the point to, Barbara made that same point in our last discussion. She just raised it, and she wasn't arguing, she raised it. And I pointed out to her that if that kind of conspiracy happened, that's the kind of thing people can sniff out and find out in a way. I mean, he would expose himself to a tremendous amount of risk if he did anything like that in a formal way.
Well, the argument, they've only got one representation for downtown. We've represented downtown, all of us collective on the assembly, ever since I can remember. They've only had one. But when an issue comes up, we don't worry about, well, I represent Midtown, I represent East Anchorage, I don't care about downtown. We care about it.
You know, and I actually asked Patrick, you know, are you gonna be involved in the day-to-day operations? And he said no, so.
But he's the treasurer?
They
Well,
have
it is
to
a
see,
close
when you, if you filled out incorporation
Yeah.
papers, somebody has to be listed as president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. So they listed him as treasurers because they had to have somebody to fill in on that line. So, you know, and for each additional cultivation license that passes, his percent of the market is gonna be continually diminished. So by the time we get a couple of dozen of these cultivation, and there's gonna be that many
And it's
or
not just
more,
in Anchorage, by the way.
it's gonna be really, really minimal.
But isn't Dick's point right? I mean, whether it's outright, rarely is it outright, you know, exchanging money or quid pro quo. But
Sure.
if I'm buying, why wouldn't I buy from the assemblyman's thing? I'm before the assembly all the time.
Well, maybe, or, well, first of all, he's going to be gone in a year, right? And
8 months.
second,
8
in 8
months.
months, yeah. And secondly, it's going to be on price. I mean, so the cultivation facilities will only have legal marijuana to sell in like 3 months. There'll be 5 months left for a pad or whatever. I just don't. I think that that risk is relatively small versus the real cost of excluding, you know, 9% of our body, you know, or whatever, 8%, 9% of our body, that also, by the way, does have pretty good knowledge on this issue. And I think there's also the public perception, right or wrong, that we are dragging our feet. And I know, Dick, that's not the case. That's not the case.
I think that half the public thinks we're going too fast, and half think we're dragging our feet. And if you're doing that,
Right.
then
So
you may
let's
be in
try
the
to.
right
So,
position.
so my perspective is,
I think you're right.
I think I've offered a compromise here that sort of splits the baby in a way that I think is makes it look like, and I think does protect the public trust in the sense that he will be excluded from the cultivation licenses, but allows us to at the same time access Pat when it comes to things like testing and manufacture, which I.
You do understand this? The moral of the parable is not to split the
I
baby.
know. I know.
The one who wanted to split the baby was the one that didn't get the baby.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me understand it. So not on cultivation, but he could vote on retail and on testing.
Manufacturing.
And manufacturing, where they have no plans to
Manufacturing
manufacturing
is you take the raw product and you make it into smokable.
edibles, stuff like that. Yeah,
Okay.
and so we have yet to approve any manufacturing or or testing. Although the testing have gone through Title 21 committee, and Dick, you were there.
So that's coming?
Those two are
It's
coming.
coming.
Those two are coming, and they're coming on. At least one of them is coming on September 13th, I think.
Both of them.
Both of them are coming on September 13th, and I would like to have Pat there to do that. I also am tired of letting him go home early.
But he likes to go home early.
I know. Let's punish him a little bit.
Recuse us all.
So,
Well, so, at the assembly meeting, I voted that I didn't think Mr. Flynn had a conflict, but I do understand, the points that you all have been making, but I do think Forrest's idea is a reasonable compromise. And so I'm planning to support letting Patrick vote on licenses that are non-cultivation licenses.
and I think, Dick, even you said you had never intended to exclude him from the general policy discussion. Is that right?
What do you mean general policy?
So if there was not a specific license, but a general like regulatory
I
change.
wouldn't keep him from that, no.
Yeah.
But I still think he has a conflict of interest, I'm sorry. And it's not this body that will decide, it will be the assembly to decide what is conflict of interest. That from this committee, this goes to the assembly.
Yeah.
That'll be a full-blown, complete assembly decision.
Can we? How does it practically look like if we return this to the assembly in some way? Do we make some sort of statement? And then at the assembly, can you do what I've suggested? Can you bar them from a certain kind of license but not a different kind of license?
I think the assembly can make those decisions.
The assembly can pretty much do it.
Yeah, we can borrow them from any votes or none votes or just certain ones. I don't mind that. I'll continue to think about the points you guys have eloquently made, and I don't mind us sending that forward as a recommendation from the committee. How I vote on it on the assembly, I'm still considering, but we
Okay.
can move it forward.
Can you move something out of committee 3-1?
Oh, yeah, you can move out of committee 3-1, it's just that when it gets to the full body, that's gonna be all 10 of us making this decision.
Oh, right.
Sure.
But the reason I feel this strong, because I sell machine guns every now and then. I have a license to do that. But I had one guy that came, wanted to buy one from me, and he says, I'm going to chief of police, you'll have to sign it because you're an assembly member, and you sold it to me. So I stopped selling to the public. And my concern is, Patrick's gonna get the same thing I did. Person's gonna assume, because they bought it from a sitting assembly member, it will get approved for them when their license comes through. Right or wrong, public perception.
There's the phrase "hard cases make bad law," and I would urge you not to let that one negative experience impact your whole life, Dick.
Well, I will.
What Dick said on, we're treating this because it's a new industry, not because it's marijuana. We are all, I think, trying to understand that people voted for it, and we're going to treat it like alcohol, if anything, and we're going to recognize alcohol has problems, and so will
Both are drugs.
marijuana.
It depends on which kind you like to use.
Right. The people have decided that this to legalize this drug as they did, alcohol way back, and so we're trying to. But I'm not trying to treat. I'm not making this decision because it's marijuana. I'm making this decision because of the ground floor argument you were talking about. That being one of the first 2 or 3
Right.
is a whole lot different than being the 23rd or 100th.
And we're all in agreement that the central issue is not him actually doing any kind of corruption; it's the public trust. And-
Public
and-
trust has never been corrupt.
It's
I've
the
known- I worked with
perception.
40. I worked with 45 assembly members. There's only a couple, I'll name it by name, who I was really concerned about.
Well,
But not him. One we had to actually remove.
sure.
Who was the only removal?
Off the record, I'll tell you.
Well, it was on the record if you removed him.
What, after,
Okay, if it has to be off, I thought it was on.
off the record.
So, and I hadn't fully understand that. I'll think about before the next meeting. So it has not been our practice to exclude participants in an industry from every industry discussion. We have more generally excluded them from their specific things to a specific site for a developer or
Yeah.
license for a.
But not generally for the entire thing.
Well, and I'm not the attorney in the room here, but I think a precedent has been set, even though it's dealing with the liquor industry, that he, has been allowed to participate in hundreds of liquor license renewals and new applications, even though he's been, minimally involved in a couple of restaurants that also sell alcoholic beverages. So,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You know-
The alcohol is not a big part of those restaurants' deal.
Yeah, but even if he owned a bar, I think you'd have the same result. I mean, I
A
don't
bar
think-
downtown?
Well, did
well, he would
Sullivan?
recuse himself for the renewal of that bar.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So when Sullivan's voting on
Did he vote on other liquor licenses, Dick?
downtown,
Yes, he did.
interesting.
There are some things that we would accuse him for voting on.
If they were
But
directly
they were on
impacted.
Sullivan.
A direct
On
competitor
Sullivan.
right
Yeah.
across the street or something, right?
See, that
And some of
seems
us want
like
to accuse him about everything, that's another story.
the closer in location, the closer in type of business, right? The more direct the conflict,
This gets to my proposed
right?
compromise, because I think I do see a more direct relationship to the cultivation.
I don't want to let another cultivator in. I want to keep
Exactly.
it low.
Exactly.
I'm in. Nobody else gets in.
But
Increases my income.
right, but I do think that the retail, and we're talking about a relatively large industry when it's all stood up, and the retail and the manufacturer, I think that's too attenuated. You know, the idea that they'll only buy from me. I don't really buy that, especially when we're just talking about 5 months worth, right, before he's off the assembly entirely.
And there's nothing to worry about, in 5 months he's gone.
No, but at these moments,
Oh, I'm
right
sorry,
now,
right now, okay.
right now, I think while we're standing up this industry, it makes sense for us to have all 11 members talking about it, especially one from downtown where a number of these facilities are going to go. We already put one of these cultivation facilities in this district.
You're talking about the Porcupine Street?
Talking about the one in Mountain View.
Yeah, Porcupine Street.
Is that where it is?
Yeah, I know my locations, I'm sorry.
I think of it as next to Linden
That was the
Transport.
first one we approved, actually.
Yeah,
Actually, I've got, there are much more coming in my area, there's a lot of them coming.
sure.
We
Anyway,
still don't have any in Muldoon.
Big
So-
fight's gonna be in your area on retail,
yes, it will.
because retail is where it's gonna start to hit our constituents where they live.
That's right. And I would like
High
to have, I
cultivation,
would like
Retail, you're
to,
not.
well, that's exactly right, and that's why when that fight comes with retail, I think Pat should be in the room to offer that perspective, and the perspective of downtown and Mountain View. Anyway,
Because his district may end up having more licenses than all the rest of them put together.
for retail at least.
And his
I don't know, I
district
think
may
they
or may
should.
not like him there, but if he's a cultivator, he needs retail places to be going, or he's not going to make any money, right?
Well-
Needs to push him through.
Well, true, but, I mean, we're talking about, retail is gonna go into somewhere. You know, if we ban retail in Anchorage, right on the border to Anchorage, there'll be a bunch of
We
retail.
already voted on that, we're not going to ban retail.
Right.
Don't start the rumor, please. That was Amy.
Yes.
Can I just ask a question for the committee? Is there a point at which there's enough cultivation licenses that?
It's de minimis for each one.
Yeah, so that's like the interesting conversation that I think is happening between the voices that I'm hearing talk about
Yeah.
the liquor industry. And so at what point is,
I would say 8 months.
It does seem like there is a point. When that point is, I don't know, Amanda, but yeah, it does seem like when there's
we reach a
100.
saturation point, that we don't know, because we don't know what the market's gonna be. And so we don't know how many growers are gonna be able to make money and continue to do it.
'cause
And the market may continue to grow. Those are all unknowns at this point.
I think there's gonna be a big shakeout in every industry, and you're gonna see everybody wanting to get into this and to shake out.
Yeah, a lot
Some will
of
survive.
A lot of these businesses are gonna fail.
You know, and that's what, using Sullivan's example, voting on a bar in South Anchorage, I think it's so de minimis the impact it has on him, who cares? Voting on a bar across the street, an Irish bar across the street, you know, then it gets, so I think you almost do have to look at these individually. You say, well, I'm not going to generally bar you from voting on bars, but the closer it gets to your line of business, your area, impact on
Your
you,
location.
another Irish bar across the way would really impact.
Well, that's, yes, but how much time do we want to spend on this before every one of these licenses? Wouldn't it be better to try to set some kind of precedent now? Like, if you own retail, you can't vote on retail, you know, or
Right.
something along those lines. Until there will come a point, I mean, I agree, I think there will be a point in 5 years, or maybe it's in 2 years, where it'll just be like liquor licenses in the sense that basically an assembly member will be able to vote on any marijuana license, unless it is, like you said, right across the street.
You know, the prediction is that legalized marijuana is gonna be a $20 billion industry by 2020 in
Yeah,
the
but
United
if-
States.
Nationwide?
The projection,
20
Much
billion.
smaller than I expected, actually.
that's.
but if California votes to legalize it, Alaskans can forget about any economic boom. Can you know what's gonna be grown at? All over
Well, we
California.
can't
Yeah, but
export,
we're
we
not
can't
gonna
export
import
it
it.
anyway.
No,
Nobody
but
can
I'm just
export
telling
it
you,
or anyway. We're
From
just
my
talking about,
perspective, if I'm growing, I'm gonna grow in California where it's nice weather.
that's
They-
fine.
but they can grow outside down there.
But there are Alaskans who want to consume this product, and you have to grow it in Alaska.
They're
if you want
still
to sell it
growing
in
it here.
Alaska.
They always have been.
Yeah.
The thing that I heard recently too was if the tobacco states legalize it, they already have the whole infrastructure.
Oh.
That
Sell
could
the
just
joints and stuff.
RJ
Crazy
Reynolds, and they get in the
devastating
business to
industry.
look out.
everybody else because they have the whole.
At which point
infrastructure.
it'll sound silly that we barred Pat from voting on these things.
Well, we'll be off the assembly by that time. I'm not worried about that.
So, if there any further discussion, do we want to make a 3-to-1 recommendation to the assembly for
Make your
Forest
3-1
compromise?
recommendation, because it's in front of the whole
How about we
assembly.
make it 4-0? Dick, why don't you
No.
come on board?
Just passing it on.
So the
Pass it on to the assembly, it's where the
Great.
decision.
So the
ultimately
3-to-1
will be made.
decision is we pass it back with the suggestion that he be barred from from doing cultivation licenses, but he's allowed to participate in the other 3. Okay. So we have to vote.
I'm voting to move it on. I still want to think about whether I support it at the assembly.
Okay.
That's your alternative.
Well,
Okay,
Great.
any other discussion before we move to audience participation?
I'm excited for audience participation.
Okay, let's go to our audience participation. Mr. Dunsmore.
Good morning. Sorry I'm late.
There you go. Brilliant, edifying.
Any input into this issue?
Oh, I think you guys.
We covered it all? All right. Okay, well, I guess the committee meeting will be adjourned then. Thank you for coming.